Turn off your phone, close the door, put on headphones, get your notebooks out. We are going to write. I'm only wearing a shirt. I feel so exposed. I love sweaters, but just it's so hot out today. Anyways, welcome back to the Virtual Writing Academy. Today, we're going to tackle the big, bad wolf of writing. That's right, we're gonna tackle the first paragraph. But before we go anywhere, for those of you joining in for the first time, this is the way class is going to work. I will give you a timed writing exercise. I will shut up and you will write. Once the time is up, you will stop writing and I will start talking again. Simple as that. Once we're done with today's exercise, we will meet again and talk about our experiences. Today's lesson may seem really straightforward, but it's not. There's a bit of a trick behind it, though I will not tell you what it is until the end. Why? Because the best learning is done by doing. So, go grab your notebook or open up your writing software of choice. You can minimize this video if you want. I'll tell you when to bring it back up. For today's exercise, we're going to need music a little on the fantasy side. And for that, I recommend one of my favorite playlists, Royalty and Noble Blood. It's a fantasy playlist about intrigue, daggers, crowns, and poisoned cups of wine. And I think it's perfect for today's exercise. You can find a link to it in the description below. Though, of course, if you want to check out the rest of my writing playlists, they are all available for free over at 8tracks.com/mkieran. I'll give you a minute to get ready. Feel free to pause the video if you want. I'll be here waiting for you. I said turn off your phones, not my phone. It's different. Go. It's really hot out today. Like, really hot. Okay, like I'm actually checking my email now. Are you ready? Okay, let's get started then. As always, before we get started, let me remind you that you are free to change the characters and the setting to fit whatever you're working on. Whatever you need to get writing is fine by me. Now, let's dive right in. Do you want to hear a story? You will have 10 minutes to write from the point of view of a character as they begin retelling the story of their life. The catch? This character is actually telling someone the story. Again, you will have 10 whole minutes to write about a character, from their point of view of course, as they tell the story of their life to another person. The difference between this and just regular storytelling is that there's actually a person they're sharing the story to, and there's information they may want to hold back and information they may want to make up for themselves. The trick here is that people lie. People lie all the time. What is this character going to omit, and what are they going to make up? Now you may be thinking to yourselves, Max, are you going to give us the first line of the story? Nope. There's a double catch to this story. There is always a double catch. What's the double catch, you say? Simple. I will give you two characters, and whoever you pick will tell the story of their life to the other character. That's right, you're going to pick who is telling the story of their life to who. These are the characters. On the left, there's a thief. Their face is riddled with scars, and their hands and ankles are bound with chains. And on the right, there is an executioner. Their face is entirely covered, and they have been tasked with executing the thief. Pick one of these characters, a step into their mind, and show us with their voice how is it they begin retelling the story of their life. To the person who is about to kill them, and the person they're about to kill. Be brave, writerly friend. The time to write starts now. And never forget that everyone has a story to tell. 60 seconds remaining. Alright, time's up. Pencils down, fingers off the keyboard. If you minimize the video, please bring it back up. Let's take a deep breath. Isn't the first line and the first paragraph the big bad wolf of writing? I think it is. It can be incredibly daunting to new writers. It can just be this wall of brick and stone that you just can't break through. That is actually the reason why I've been giving you, up until this episode, the first line, because I feel that it is the best way to just give you a launch pad just to get you going, to get you writing. For those of you familiar with my blog, you know very well that I've actually answered this question like 3 times already, and every time expanding more and more and more. And I think it's really about time that I made a video about this. Now, I have 2 tips for overcoming the first sentence or the first paragraph. One is really easy and the other is even easier. Now for the first one, I know that people don't like to hear this, but honestly, from the bottom of my heart, the best first sentences and paragraphs are not written. They are rewritten. Take it from the guy who has chopped up and rewritten entire first chapters. Now, as I've mentioned many times in the past, most of the work that goes into rewriting a first draft goes into the first third. Why? Because you're discovering the world, you're discovering the characters, and you're kind of bumbling your way through the story. And that's what happens, because you're writing a new story, you're discovering it on your own. It's entirely natural for you to make mistakes here and there. Now, trust me when I tell you that the first line / paragraphs of stories are a little kind of blown out of proportion. People value them way too much, and personally, I don't. I think that the first line is important, but the second line is more important, and the one after that, and after that, and after that. Why? Because you want people to not stop reading your book, or at least to keep wanting to read more. The first line gets all of this like rep for being really important, when in reality, it's part of the ecosystem. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story, just so you understand really what I mean by this. Because I know that a lot of writers, they get started with writing and they seem to be under the impression that the first draft needs to be perfect or at least good, which is not. I wrote a book called Justine's Blood. It's kind of popular, people like it, I guess. When I first wrote that story, the first draft of that story had this enormous, kind of like half a page of introduction that kind of talked about Annabelle's life. Annabelle is the protagonist of the story, and it kind of talks about Annabelle's life before the story began, like in a really broad scope. And I thought it was good when I first wrote it. I thought, this is a way of starting the story. And it wasn't until the revision process that I realized it was really, really slow. And I was struggling with it because I'm like, I like this, it's kind of effective, but it's just stumbling. It's not introducing the reader into what they really need to care about. So you know what I did? I cut those 3 first paragraphs, that half a page, I just cut it. No, seriously, the original opening for that story was like half an additional page of Annabelle going, my life was like this, my life was like that, my life was like this, and then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. So I thought, you know what, why not just cut those 3 paragraphs and have the story begin with, and then my life changed. I'm not kidding you, and then it just suddenly worked. I gave it to my beta readers, and they read it, and they thought the opening was brilliant, that it worked perfectly, that it just settled you right into the story. And of course, you have to understand that from my point of view, like, deep inside, I'm going like, you're never gonna see the original. Now, I know what you're asking yourself. 1, Max, you have gone on long enough, and 2, you said there were 2 points, and 3, what does that have to do with what we wrote? Well, my second piece of advice is something you have already learned. You see, my other tip for overcoming the first sentence / first paragraph is to get inside your character's head. Really, how would this character share the story of their life? What would they omit? Where exactly would they begin the telling? It's a lot more effective when you imagine them telling one person in particular, but this also works when that's not happening. Now, I know what you're thinking. Max, what if I'm writing a story in third person? Then I don't actually have a character whose voice I can focus on. And you're wrong. Now, the following is probably the most radical piece of advice I am ever going to give you. And it goes a little like this. Regardless of what you're writing, what point of view you're writing it from, the narrator is always a character. I mean it. Even if it's third person omniscient, there has to be someone behind the curtain sharing the story. My piece of advice for overcoming the first sentence is to step back, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, who is the person narrating this story? Now, the world may never know, and that's okay. You may never share with anyone, but I think it's helpful to step back and ask yourself, who is telling this story, and why? It can be a god, a deity, a dark tentacle monster in the depths of space, a ghost, or simply just nature. Someone, regardless of what you're doing, someone is telling that story. And I feel that if you take this narrator and get inside of their mind, it becomes a lot easier to start telling the story. Because all you need to do is ask yourself, how would this character tell this story? I hope this helps. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you want more. And of course, if you have any comments or ideas for future episodes, please share them in the comments. As always, if you would like even more writing advice, exercise, prompts, and writer positivity, head over to my blog at maxkieran.tumblr.com. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Also, yes, I was actually totally checking my email. I'm bad.